Most of us spend a lot of time at home. When we're surrounded by our families, we feel safe and secure. But are we? As we're now finding out, many of our homes are being invaded by a potentially deadly gas called radon. Radon is a naturally occurring radioactive gas that's been around almost since the beginning of time. Outdoors, radon's not a problem because it's diluted by the air and blown away by the wind. But when it's trapped inside your home, radon gas can build up and cause high levels of radioactivity. Many of us are exposed to more radiation from radon than from all other sources combined. Hello, I'm Bob Prosky. You may know me from my roles in television and the movies, but in addition to being an actor, I'm also a father, and I'm looking forward to being a grandfather. I'm a homeowner too, and I'm concerned about radon because radon can cause lung cancer, and it may pose a special threat to our children. Radon comes from the soil and rocks that surround our homes. It usually gets in through cracks in the foundation or basement walls, even small cracks that are almost impossible to see. Because radon is odorless and colorless, the only way to be sure your house is safe is to test for it. If you've never tested before, you'll probably want to start with a short-term test. Test kits are sold at many supermarkets and hardware stores. They cost about $10 or $20, and they take only a few days to do. The main part of most test kits is a container, like this metal canister, with charcoal inside. Information sheets and directions tell you how to perform the test to get accurate results. Before you begin the test, close all the doors and windows in your house and turn off any fans that use outside air. Central heating and air conditioning systems can be left on. The charcoal canister should be put in your basement, or, if you don't have a basement, the lowest living level of your home. Record the date and time that you start the test and place the canister in the open, away from drafts and windows, and away from concrete or masonry walls. The charcoal inside the canister traps and absorbs radon in much the same way as baking soda absorbs odors in a refrigerator. During the test, keep your doors and windows closed as much as possible. When the testing period is over, the canister must be resealed, otherwise it will continue to absorb radon and show too high a reading. When the rest of the required information is filled out, the kit should be mailed to the testing lab as soon as possible. It's important to mail it quickly because the test becomes inaccurate if the canister sits around too long after it's been exposed. In the lab, each canister is placed in a special radon detector and carefully analyzed to determine how much radon it has absorbed. The test results will be mailed back to you, usually within a couple of weeks. In most cases, your radon level will be shown in units of picocuries per liter. That's what this abbreviation stands for. This reading of 7.2 picocuries per liter is above average. No amount of radon is completely safe, but the United States Environmental Protection Agency has determined that certain levels of exposure are acceptable. To help you understand the health risks, the EPA has published guidelines for radon exposure. According to the EPA, if the radon level in your home is below 4 picocuries per liter, the risks from exposure are low. At this level, you have less than a 5% chance of getting lung cancer from a lifetime exposure to radon. That's the same as saying that if a group of 20 people were exposed to 4 picocuries per liter of radon for 70 years, you'd expect less than 1 case of cancer. But with increased exposure come increased risks. At an exposure level of 20 picocuries per liter, up to 4 people in the group could get lung cancer. And at 200, between 10 and 15 people could get cancer. This risk is about equivalent to smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day. so radon exposure can be very dangerous, particularly at higher levels. Because of this, the EPA has made recommendations about what you should do based on your test results. If your radon level is above 200 picocuries per liter, you should take action quickly to reduce the amount of radon in your home. Exposures in this range are among the highest residential levels that have been recorded. If your results are between 20 and 200, you should take action soon, within a few months. Radon levels like these are well above average. If your reading indicates a radon level of between 4 and 20 picocuries per liter, you'll probably need to do some further testing to find out how serious the problem is. Finally, if your radon level is relatively low, less than 4 picocuries per liter, no action is needed except for periodic retesting to make sure your levels haven't changed. When you're below 4, the EPA has found that it's often difficult to reduce levels much further. Whenever you have above average levels, higher than 4, you may want to do additional testing before deciding what action to take. That's because radon levels vary from season to season and from room to room in your house. The higher up you are in a house, for example, the lower the radon level tends to be. And when the weather's nice and you keep the windows open, fresh air mixes with the radon and reduces the level. But in the winter, when you use the fireplace, you may actually be increasing radon levels. A fire draws air from inside the room and sends it up the chimney. With doors and windows closed, the pressure inside the house will be slightly lower than the pressure outside, and radon can be drawn up from the ground and into the house. The health risks from radon are based on your average yearly exposure. Since radon levels vary, it's often a good idea to do additional testing to find out what your average level is. There are 2 easy ways to do this. You can do a short-term test in each of the 4 seasons and average the results, or you can use a long-term test device like this alpha track detector. It's accurate, easy to use, and at a cost of about $15 to $50, fairly inexpensive. It's used in much the same way as a charcoal canister, except it's left in place for a longer period of time, typically anywhere from a month to a year. If your average long-term exposure is above 4 picocuries per liter, the EPA recommends you take action to bring your levels down. There are 2 approaches to reducing the amount of radon in your home. You can try to keep it from getting in, or you can try to get rid of it if it does get in. With both approaches, there are some simple, inexpensive steps that most homeowners can try themselves, and there are more complex solutions that usually require professional expertise. The simplest approach to keeping radon out of your house is to seal any openings in floors and walls that could allow radon to get in. If you're handy with tools, sealing the lowest level of your house may be an effective way of reducing your radon exposure. But according to professionals, if it's not done properly, it won't do much good.
As a general rule, most homeowners try sealing themselves. We have no objections to it. It's just that most of them don't really understand what sealants are the best sealants to use, or they do not understand how to apply the sealants. And we actually end up having to cut the sealant back out again and put a proper sealant in there, clean the crack out properly.
To properly seal the area where the floor and the wall meet, first remove any loose particles and debris. Then grind away a small area so the sealant will hold when it's applied. Goggles and a filter mask are a good way to protect yourself from dust and from any flying particles. When the crack has been cleaned out, carefully apply caulking or a similar material. Here, a non-toxic urethane-based caulk is being used. Work it into the opening with your finger and seal the entire area. Remember, radon is a gas. It can get through very small openings. You should also seal around pipes, like this one that goes through the floor. Carefully caulk the space between the pipe and the floor and make a nice, tight seal. This inactive sump is being covered and sealed with a plexiglass plate. One layer of caulking holds it in place. Another one seals it and keeps it from leaking. Other sealants besides caulking can also be effective. Here, an irregularly shaped hole in the wall is being filled in with urethane foam. Whatever methods you choose, wait a few days for the radon already in the room to dissipate, and then retest to see how effective your work has been. If your radon level has been reduced to less than 4 picocuries, the first part of your work is done. But new cracks can appear at any time, and old seals can pop open. So recheck your basement on at least a yearly basis and periodically retest for radon. If sealing walls and floors doesn't solve the problem, you may want to try more complex ways of keeping radon out. Or, depending on the situation, you can try to remove some of the radon that's getting in. Let's first look at some simple ways of removing radon. The easiest thing to do is to ventilate the room by opening windows. Fresh air will get rid of some of the radon gas, and it will also help equalize the pressure between the inside and the outside of the house. Providing a source of outside air is also important if you have a gas or oil-fired furnace. A system like this requires air to support a flame. If there's not an open window or vent to supply fresh air, radon-laden air may be drawn up from the ground through cracks in the walls and floor. So proper ventilation can be a very effective short-term approach, but it can greatly increase your utility bills. And open windows may compromise the security of your house. Forced ventilation, putting in window fans and vents, may solve part of the problem. Some of them even have heat recovery systems that can keep your utility bills down. Fans should be installed so that they blow fresh air into the house. The air should leave through windows or vents on opposite or adjacent walls. If fans are installed improperly, they can reduce the pressure inside the house and actually draw more radon in. So you may want to consult a radon specialist to make sure that what you're planning to do isn't going to make things worse. If you're considering one of the more complex ways of dealing with radon, a specialist can help evaluate the problem, recommend a cost-effective approach, and install any necessary equipment. Some will also guarantee to bring your radon exposure down to an acceptable level. One common way of solving serious radon problems is with a sub-slab ventilation system. A suction fan and pipes draw radon from the ground and vent it safely outside. A system like this usually works best when there's a layer of crushed stone underneath the foundation of the house. To install a sub-slab ventilation system, a hole is drilled into the basement floor. Then sections of pipe are run from below the floor, through a wall, and outside, in this case, exiting through the garage roof. A blower installed in the line actually sucks the radon from the ground before it has a chance to get into your house. A system like this may cost $1,000 or more, but it can remove up to 98% of the radon. That means that a 200 picocurie reading could be reduced to less than 4. If you have cinder block walls in your basement, or if your foundation rests directly on the ground, you may want to consider a slightly different approach. Many cinder block walls are hollow. If they crack on the outside without cracking on the inside, radon can flow into your home through the holes in the blocks. If you have this problem, sealing the top of the blocks may help, but this isn't always practical. It's hard to get to the area where the walls and the joists meet to seal it properly. A wall suction system may provide the answer. It works the same way as the sub-slab system, except that it pulls radon from the walls rather than from the ground. Systems like this require a great deal of expertise to install properly. The Environmental Protection Agency provides radon reduction training for contractors and builders, and a number of states have begun certifying contractors for radon reduction work. Your state or local health services should have lists of certified contractors in your area. Also, your local Consumer Affairs Office or Better Business Bureau may be able to help. And most states have a radon hotline number that you can call for assistance. Whether you get professional help or decide to do the job yourself, what's important is that if you do have a radon problem, you take steps to reduce your exposure.
For some strange reason, it's the people that call us are the people with the lower numbers rather than the higher numbers. People with higher numbers just seem to let it go for a while. They figure, I've been living here this long, why worry about it? And they don't realize that if they did fix it, that they could eliminate the potential health risk.
Protecting ourselves and our families is of utmost importance. The EPA and the Surgeon General believe radon exposure is a significant health problem that affects millions of homes and may cause up to 20,000 lung cancer deaths every year. The only way to be sure is to test. You should do a test whether you live in a detached house, a townhouse, or on or below the second floor of an apartment building. Start with a short-term test in the basement or your lowest living level. If your initial reading is above 4 picocuries, do further testing to determine your average annual exposure. If your yearly average is between 4 and 20, try to reduce it by keeping radon out of the house, or by opening windows and vents to get rid of it. If your radon level is above 20, you may want to consider using forced ventilation or a suction system of some kind. If your levels are extremely high, you should probably consult with a certified radon contractor to determine the best course of action. And always retest to make sure you have the problem under control. Your home is one of your biggest financial investments. You and your family should feel safe and secure there. But until you test for radon, your peace of mind and your health are at risk. Radon's out there and it's dangerous. You can't see it and you can't smell it. But with proper action, you can control it. So like I used to say on Hill Street Blues, let's do it to radon before radon does it to us. Here are the phone numbers to call for more information about radon where you live.